Good day and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about The Eye of the World, which was published in 1990 by Robert Jordan and is the first book in the Wheel of Time series. The Wheel of Time series ended up being 14 books, 5 to 700 pages in length, plus a 300-page prequel book. Unfortunately, the author was not able to finish the series. They did write 11 of the books, and then Brandon Sanderson came through and wrapped up the series, writing three more books from the author's notes. The Wheel of Time is pretty much the most epic of epic fantasies out there. Um, I ended up reading through seven of the books before I just couldn't read anymore. It was enjoyable, but it enabled me to come up with a concept which I periodically find useful in discussing books, which is the author lost what I call lost control of the narrative. And by that I mean authors often talk about books and the characters in the books come to life and they, so to speak, demand certain actions. When you are writing a book and you're creating something and the characters, you make the characters as real as they can. Sometimes you might want the plot to go a certain way and a character to do a certain thing, and the character's like, nope. In the author's head, the art character's like, no, this isn't what I'm going to do. This isn't what I want. This is what I want to do instead. And I believe, although I don't obviously know, that's what ended up happening to Robert Jordan. Part of it is that, and then part of it is just a reluctance to discard characters. So, you might see in book two, there's a character that appears briefly in a scene, and then they'll reappear later and reappear later. And they're not critical to the plot. They don't drive events forward, but they're a neat character and they're interesting, and they have interesting things happen to them. So you figure, oh well, it's 5-10 pages. I mean, what's 5 or 10 pages? The problem with the Wheel of Time is that these side characters proliferated, and there were so many of them that it eventually made the pace of the story just absolutely glacial because the author was spending so much time talking about these side characters that really weren't advancing the plot. You'd go through, 100 pages where nothing happened. And by nothing happened, I don't mean, there was nothing going on. There were things happening, but they were not interesting things and they were not advancing the plot. So I remember reading the seventh book, and I was, I'd read it, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is so slow. I can't handle this. All right, look, if no one dies in 100 pages, I'm done. I'm just going to put the book down and never pick it up again. So about page 95, there'd be a brief flurry of action, and there'd be a fight, and someone would die. I'm like, oh, good, okay, someone died. So I'd read. I get another 50 pages in. I'm like, oh, God, this is so slow again. If no one dies in 100 pages, I'm done. 80 pages later, someone dies. I'm like, all right, well, I can keep reading. And I just alternated between, okay, there was action, somebody died. I wasn't literally looking for someone to die. I was just looking for things to happen that advanced the plot. And eventually I got to the end of the book and I'm like, okay, well, book eight should be out soon. I read the books as they came out. And then I sat and thought, I was like, actually, no, never mind. I'm not going to get the next book when it comes out because I spent pretty much the entirety of this book, this 700-page book, which is not quick reading, waiting for something to happen. And when something did happen, there was just a little bit of something, and then it would go back into, you know, irrelevancies and side plots and other stories. And so obviously it's a very good book. There are people that are fans of it. It's a very well developed world, obviously, because they spent a lot of time on those side plots and developing characters in obscure villages that you'd never hear of again. Um, So, the Wheel of Time does have lots of fans and people that enjoy reading it. I've read Brandon Sanderson's work. He is an absolutely awesome writer of epic fantasy. So I'm sure, the fact that he took three books to kind of tie everything together and finish off the epic quest of the world should tell you a little bit something about how much detail there was. And he just didn't want to just say, okay, well, here's the main storyline, done. So it took him another, 2,000 odd pages to wrap everything up. So there's obviously a lot going on, and it's a very well developed world. But as I said, I think the author just lost control of the narrative. He spent too much time listening to the characters and what they wanted, and not enough time thinking about how am I going to advance the plot and get the book to where it needs to go. So, again, good book, well written, would say not fun to read because it was very slow for me and there wasn't enough going on, but there are lots of people that like it. As always, I appreciate you giving me your time and listening this far, and I will talk to you again later.